case, we're solely owned by Sam Calagione. He owns the whole thing. So we're not worried about that requirement. We got that one under control. The second requirement is that we make less than 6 million barrels of beer a year. We're not the largest craft brewer in America. Does anybody know the largest craft brewer in America? Sam Adams. They made 2.4 million barrels of beer last year. They're actually the reason we jumped that requirement from 2 million to 6 million barrels. After that, it's Sierra Nevada at 900,000 barrels. After that is New Belgium at 700,000 barrels. We come in at number 11 at 120,000 barrels. So we're not worried about that 6 million barrel market yet. From there, we're going to go to the third and final requirement, which has to do with the purity of our beer. We're not allowed to use adjunct sugars in our beers. We can't cheapen the flavor of beer. When I say adjunct sugars, what I mean is that the larger companies who can make what Dogfish Head makes in a year, in a day, they'll water down the flavor of beer with corn or rice and kind of demean the flavor of that barley. We're just going to use barley, right? Especially, and it's really in that mash process. We're going to talk about the process in a minute. But barley is really important for us. And we use anywhere from 50 to 70 pounds of barley per barrel of beer. A barrel is 31 gallons. So you get an idea of how important the purity of our beer is to us. And that's the third requirement to be a craft brewer. Does anybody know where we got our name by chance?
Sam's hometown.
Sam's hometown. Actually, not true. Sam's from Massachusetts. We actually got a
kid, right?
I'm sorry?
He played there as a kid, right?
I'm sorry?
He played there as a kid.
Yes, you're correct. He did play there as a kid. It's actually in Maine where Sam went vacation, so you were very close. Great guess.
Wild guess.
Yeah, that was cool. Sam went vacation when he was a child at Dogfish Head, Maine. And when he talked to his dad about, going up to the brewery, his dad suggested Dogfish Head as a name. And it really sat with Sam well. His dad, gave him an idea and he wanted to continue with that. Plus, if you've ever seen a live dogfish, they kind of go with our off-center motto for off-center people. They're kind of a bizarre creature. It was perfect for our idea of what we wanted to do, so that's where we got our name. And we got started at the same place, all great craft breweries got started on a stovetop in somebody's apartment. We started as homebrewers. Sam started as a homebrewer. He was 23, 24 years old. He was in New York City. He was studying at Columbia University. He was working towards getting an MFA in writing. And as he was doing this, being that he was in New York City, he had to work his way through college, much like we all do. But he was working at a place called Nacho Mama's Burritos. Englishman. Right? At Nacho Mama's Burritos, he had this great beer selection. Sam would pair the beers with the meals and everybody. So he decided that what he could do was make this great beer. He knew that he could make great beer, so he got a homebrew kit and he made his first batch of beer. His first batch of beer was a cherry brew, and he had a bunch of friends over to try it, and it went over well. Everybody loved it. Sam knew it was something great. He knew it was a great beer. Everybody knew that they really wanted him to keep making this beer. And Sam had one of those ideas after, right after he made the beer, right after he tasted it, he goes, I want to open up a brewery. And he wanted to do it in a state that didn't have one. So what he does is he starts to research, hold on a second, guys. If you can't hear me, just scoot forward. He decides what he's going to do is he's going to open a brewery in a state that doesn't have one. And he's looking for states that are going to work out for him. And the first one that he finds with the help of his wife, who's also his high school sweetheart, Mariah, is Delaware. Delaware doesn't have a brewery. So Sam has a rare opportunity because Delaware is the first state. He can now be the first brewery in the first state. So he does his research and raises his funds. He gets about $200,000 together to open up his brewery. He's going to open up a small business, in this case a brew pub, with $200 grand. That's really impressive. That's not a lot of money to open up a small business with. So what Sam does is he does his research. It's the best possible location to open up his brew pub. And he figures a place down on Rehoboth Avenue would be great. This will get a bunch of traffic really quickly with the summer. He'll get a bunch of traffic with the season. So he finds a location. It's about 10 blocks up on Rehoboth Avenue because if he picks a location any closer, he can't afford it. It's a really high traffic, high rent district. So what he does is he picks a location that has a parking lot. 14 spaces doesn't seem like much, but in the middle of June, in the middle of August, when there's a ton of people rolling in to his brew pub, those 14 spaces are really important. So he opens up his doors, or actually just rents the location, restores the location. He spends $180,000 of his $200 grand restoring the location, leaving him with just around 20 grand to buy his actual brewing So he buys this system right behind me. This is the original Brew Magic system. I'll let you guys take a look at it. This Brew Magic system runs around $3,000 to $7,000 depending on which model you get. Right? That leaves him with a little bit of capital to buy a couple other things, like all the main ingredients he needs, all of all of the supplies, the bottles, the kegs, the whole 9 yards. So he starts brewing with this. Do I have any home brewers here? You want to. When you buy your home brewing system, you'll probably get a 5-gallon system. A 5-gallon system produces 2 to 2.5 cases of beer on a really good day. This produces about 5 cases of beer on a really good day. So Sam is a little bit of a deficit. As a matter of fact, when he got this system, he became the world's smallest brewery. But that didn't stop him, because being that his system was so small, he could kind of experiment, and he could kind of figure things out, so he could just kind of do new things. Well, during this whole process where he's just getting set up, and he's just getting his brewing system, and he's really trying to just develop everything, before he opens his door, somebody knocks on his front door. It's a local guy, he's telling Sam about a couple of things, and he brings up the fact that opening up a brew pub in the state of Delaware is illegal. And Sam was kind of thrown off by that, right? Because there was no legislation post-prohibition, post the repeal of prohibition, really, to allow for a brew pub. But Sam's a smart guy and an English major who's a good writer, so he actually starts writing the bill himself. He writes the bill himself, takes it up to the Delaware State Congress, and submits it to Congress. And 3 days before he's scheduled to open his doors for the first time, that bill becomes law. Sam's a really lucky guy, he's a really smart guy, he's a really hard worker. Because as he's doing all of this, he's still got to brew. He's got to have enough beer for the first day he opens. So he's literally brewing around the clock. With this system, he bought a cot, so he could literally brew 24 hours and stay at the brew pub if he needed to. As he's brewing, he has a lot of fun. Because what he does is he kind of gets bored with brewing the same beer over and over again on a 10-gallon scale. So he kind of got notorious for just wandering into the kitchen, taking a couple of things from the chefs, asking what they had, doing a couple of things here and there, and just throwing in the brew kettle. And this is how some great ideas came about. Some were really well received, some not so great. But if he lost a batch of beer, he was only short about $40, which is great news. Out of a lot of time, but only short about $40 of raw material. One of those great ideas that came out of this early development period, we still use today. As a matter of fact, it's kind of our trademark. And it has to do with these little guys right here. These are hops. These are pellet hops. I believe they're Cascade hops. You can kind of take a smell and pass them around, let everybody see them. Sam's a real hophead. He likes big, powerful hoppy beers. IPAs mostly, Indian Pale Ales. Now, Sam has a tendency to make beers super hoppy. He likes really, really powerful, really hoppy beers. Well, not everybody likes an incredibly hoppy beer. Some people aren't really, all about an unbalanced IPA or anything like that. So Sam's looking for a way to have that great hop flavor, but not have it unbalanced. Traditionally, when you make a beer, you hop it twice. During the boil phase of the beer production process, what you do is you drop hops at the beginning of the boil, and then at the end of the boil. First for that bitter flavor, and then for that awesome aroma that you guys can smell on those hop pellets right there. That's the way it's done. That's the way it's always been done. And that's just the way it is. Well, Sam, what he wants to do is he wants to actually continually hop a beer. And this is just a phenomenally new idea. Nobody does this because nobody wants to stand over a boil kettle and constantly shake hops into a boiling boil kettle. So Sam has to come up with a way to do this. So he goes out to the local thrift store and buys a 1970s shaking football game. Some of you know what I'm talking about? Yes, it's a shaking football game. Right, it's just a plastic box that shakes and the players can spin around in circles. Well, he takes that box and puts it on an angle of the boil kettle, kind of jerry rigs it up, duct tapes it together, grabs a bucket like this with holes in it, right? Puts it on that shaking table, right? And takes a bunch of hop pellets that look just like that, puts it in the bucket, and it shakes and shakes and shakes, dropping a couple of hops every minute or so, every couple of seconds actually, into the boil kettle. And thus the first continually hopped IPA is born. We make 3 of them, the 60, the 90, and the 120-minute IPA. We make a couple others in there, like the Hellhound IPA, and a couple others that are not as well offered. The 60, the 90, and the 120 are the 3 most popular. Which one do you guys think we made first? It's 1 and 2 shot. Don't be shy. all, is not going to sit well with a fire marshal long term if he's going to make a continually hopped IPA. So instead of trying to use that same machine again, he actually comes out and builds this awesome machine right here. He goes out ahead and builds it. This is Sir Hopsalot. He gives it an awesome English major name. Sir Hopsalot is the world's first continual hopping machine, and he's happy to hop anything he can. He's happy to make some awesome beers. And as he's going through this whole process, he patents this machine. So now we have the only continual hopping machines, and therefore really the only continually hopped IPAs. Sam, however, is still on this 10-gallon system, and he'd really like to take it to the next level, to make more beer down the brew pub. So he needs to build a bigger system, and he needs some raw materials. So he actually goes out to a local farmer's auction, meets all the farmers, and kind of talks to them, and describes his whole history and what he does. And he actually shows up with a bunch of ice cold Midas Touch and gives them beers at 9 o'clock in the morning, so they'd really like them. Right? They all really like them so much that Sam said, I really need these particular stainless steel yogurt mats that when Sam bid on it, nobody else did after that awesome ice cold beer at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. Sam then took those stainless steel mats back to the brew pub, custom built 5-barrel system, 1 barrel being 31 gallons. And now that's the same machine that we use down there today. It's our R&D facility. We do all our test batch beers down there where we get some good feedback from anybody who's kind of rolling in and out the door, see what sells, see what doesn't. And that's what we do with that system down there. However, in '97, we needed a bigger system for bottling our beers and kegging our beers. So we opened up a location in Lewis in 1997. And we were there until 2002 when we came up here. Does anyone have any questions for me? Alright, let's kind of scoot over this way. We're going to go over the actual process of making beer. Okay. Four basic ingredients. We're going to use 3 of them here. I'm going to start with our water. We bring all our water in from 2 wells on premise. Filter it, clean it, treat it ourselves, and then we'll leave that water up to use in the next couple of stages. We're also going to bring our grain in from our silos outside and run it through one of these 2 machines here. This first machine here is a grist mill. All that's going to do is grind up our malt, our barley in our case, right? Give it that, just kind of expose some surface area to it. So when we put it in the mash tun, it's kind of all exposed. Once it's in the mash tun, we're going to add hot water to it, somewhere around 150 degrees. And what this is going to cause a natural enzymatic process to happen. What's going to happen is that the starches in all of that grain, it's going to become sugars, right? After quite a bit of time sitting there, there's a series of arms in there that just kind of spin around in circles and just push all that grain around until it gets to this really nice oatmeal-like consistency match, is what it's called. That's called matching in. That's the first process to make beer. This whole process is taking us way too long, so we want that silver machine right there. That silver machine is the wet mill. What it does is it adds hot water to the grinding process, starting that natural enzymatic breakdown right away. This knocks a whole hour off of brewing time. So that machine right there represents 20,000 barrels of beer alone. This speeds up the time so much. It means that in this room, instead of doing the traditional 5 to 7 batches we would do, we're now doing 7 to 9, which we're quite proud of. After you've got your mash, it's nice and sugary. We're going to move from the mash tun to the lauter tun. The lauter tun kind of behind this tower right here. That lauter tun kind of works like your coffee maker at home. You put the grain up top over a filter, you run hot water up through it, it pulls all of that nice sugar out into a juicy substance known as wort. That wort goes over the boil kettle as it starts to boil. It's baby beer, it's almost ready to become beer, but not quite. We're going to take all of that spent grain and we're going to have to reuse it. We don't want to waste it. What do you guys think we're going to do with all of our grain? We're going to feed it to our local cattle farmers, actually. We're going to send it out to all the cows and they're going to eat our grain. That's how we know they're having a good life because they're eating our grain, right? What we're going to do is at the end of their grain lives, we're actually going to buy those cattle back and serve it to you guys as burgers down the brew pub. Circle of life, right? We love it. It's fresh local beef. It's the best. We've got our work. It's over in the boil kettle. It's boiling like crazy. The boil kettle's behind this giant tower here. And as it's going to town boiling, we're going to add other ingredients. At Dogfish Head, we use about an average of 6 different ingredients per beer. If we're just doing an IPA, we're just going to use those 4 ingredients we talked about. But there's a machine up there. It's the bigger version of Sir Hopsalot over there. And it's going to be our continual hopping machine to make one of these IPAs. machine is known as the sofa can hopping machine. Saying slow, saying fast, get the joke. That machine's up there, it's hopping like crazy, going to town over top of Boca. If we're not making one of our IPAs, and say we're making something like Midas Touch, this is where we're going to add our other ingredients. This is where we're going to dump in all of that orange blossom honey we're going to use. We're going to throw in all of those muscat grapes, and we're going to add that saffron that comes in a tin that big to give that awesome flavor to that work. It's going to boil for a little over an hour, depending on the beer, and then at the end of that boil period, we're going to send it through a whirlpool, which is going to spin it really fast, get all those like muscat grapes or hops, and kind of pull them to the center and down to the bottom, and get them out of there. Then we take that hot wort and we run it through a heat exchanger. It's small tubes surrounded by a big tube. We run hot wort one way, cold water the other. You end up with cold wort that goes over to the over to the fermentation cellars rather, at about 68 degrees, and you end up with all that hot water that actually goes back to the lauter tun so we can reuse that heat. From there, if there's any spills during this whole process, we'll catch them in these awesome drains, treat the water ourselves, and send it out to our local farmers. That way, we can always reduce our carbon footprint. You know, we want to be as eco-friendly as possible. Anybody have any questions for me so far? All right, guys, we're going to head over into the fermentation cellars. All right, we're going to talk about a couple of things in there. We're going to go over that in a minute. That's why I'm bringing you in here. There's some really cool stuff that goes on in this room. But before I get into what goes on in this room, once everyone kind of scoots in, I'm going to talk about quality control. It's something that we take very seriously here at Dogfish Head. We go through 40 different quality control checks from the moment we start brewing all the way until we bottle, right? And they're very important to us. We'll check everything from sugar content to make sure the yeast has something to eat, to CO2 and alcohol content, things like that, making sure that there are no off flavors in our beer. But we have one really important test we do here at Dogfish, and that actually happens after we bottle, right? It's actually the coolest one here. You see, what happens is one of our team of specialists goes into the warehouse and they select a random case from a random batch. We tend to check every batch, but we'll pull out from that random case a random beer. We take that random beer and we bring it to our tasting lab, where we sit down, a series of trained professionals at 11 a.m. and they taste the beer for you guys. We just want to make sure it's not poison. We're going to taste it at 11 o'clock, but in all seriousness, it's a very serious thing at Dogfish Head. We have to go through training in order to do this, and then once we do this, they're looking for certain flavors that might be mixed in with the beer that we don't want. And if we think for any reason that, you know, they're just showing up to have a free beer, we actually spike the beer with an off flavor to make sure that they're on their toes and they can actually still taste it, so they're not getting a free beer right before 11. We do actually make it back to the warehouse eventually to put a random beer back in that random case so nobody gets one of those holiday 23 packs my uncle keeps giving me. It's really not cool. But that's just something that we do. We do take our quality control quite seriously. We're always looking to have the same taste and the same purity with our beer over and over again, based on batch to batch. So that's something we take quite seriously. Now, in this room, we're going to do a lot of things. So many things that we had to give this room a secret code name. So please don't tell anyone that I told you that the secret code name is Bay 4. Oh wait, I'm on camera. Anyways, in Bay 4, we're going to do a lot of things, but the most important things are the high gravity beers we make in here, and oak aging, wood aging, really. We're going to make the high gravity beers in these flat bottom fermenters here. When I say high gravity, I mean high alcohol by volume. I'm talking 12% alcohol by volume or greater. And the reason we're going to make it in this room is that ales can get really strong, really powerful, but they need time to do it. So we're going to ferment in here for up to a month in one of those tanks. And during this whole process of fermentation, the yeast is spent. And what happens is after the yeast is done, it just settles to the bottom. And we leave it in the bottom there, and we actually pull the beer out of there and clean that yeast out later. But it can only be used once. It's done after that. It's really just spent. But we've got this great 12% plus alcohol by volume beer. Things like the 120 are going to be made in this room. Things like the Old School, the Fort, you know, all those really great, powerful beers. But if it's something lucky, like the Old School, that's 15% alcohol by volume, it's actually going to make its way over into these tanks here. These first two tanks here are 10,000-gallon oak tanks. Those 10,000-gallon tanks are handmade, and they stay like stave by a father-son team out of upstate New York. They come in here, they build them for us, and they build them in such a way that all that's required to keep them together is the pressure of a liquid within and the steel bands you see on the outside. No glue, no nails, none of that, which is really, really cool. Now, you've got all that beer in there. Eventually, when it's done, after it's picked up all of those wonderful vanilla oak tones that we all love, we're going to send it to the bottling line. That means we have a small window where it's empty. We don't want to leave it empty too long because it'll dry out, contract, and fall apart. So what we do is we climb in there, we scrape out a new layer every now and then we run a cleaning solution through it right before we put beer right back in it. So we're always running beer through those tanks for you guys. Each one of these 2 oak tanks costs us $60,000, and they are indeed the largest oak aging tanks used by any brewery in the United States. We're quite proud of that. But we had to take it to the next level because we always take things to the next level. And this tank right here behind me, or off to my right, in front of you guys, is the Palo Santo tank. I'm sure some of you are familiar with our Palo Santo Barone, and that is an awesome beer. It's aged in this tank. It's the only beer aged in this tank. This tank is one of a kind. Palo Santo means holy wood or holy twig, right? It's also nicknamed ironwood. It's literally so dense and so soaked with resin that it will sink in water. It's that thick, it's that strong. Sam heard about it from a friend who talked to him about it, and Sam heard that it imparted this awesome caramel, really super earthy flavor. So Sam's like, you know what? I need to try beer on that. He got some really nice shavings and did a small batch, tasted it. It was phenomenal. Knew he had to take it to the next level, so he did. He flew down to Paraguay to get this tank himself. He gets down there. There's a couple of tour guides, much like myself, that are leading people, and these particular tour guides take Sam up to one of these trees. Sam's going to cut down the tree himself for his own 10,000-gallon tank. Why not? How cool is that? Well, Sam steps up with an axe and starts hacking away at these trees. There's a reason it's called iron. 45 minutes of hacking away at this tree, and Sam hasn't made a single dent on the tree. Finally, one of his tour guides kind of takes video of him, pulls him out of the way, whips out a .38 revolver and shoots the tree. The bullet hits the tree, bounces off the tree, doesn't leave a mark, and Sam goes, I want that tree. 17 diamond tip blades later, we have a 10,000-gallon Palo Santo aging tank. And we're only going to run that one beer through it, the Palo Santo Marone. An epic brown ale, 12% alcohol by volume, having that super earthy, woody tone to it that Palo Santo offers. This tank costs us $140,000. It's still handmade by the same father-son team. And there's a little joke about it that, Sam doesn't have to worry about the return on investment on this tank, and he doesn't. His kids do. Guys, that kind of brings to the end of my tour. The only other thing I want to point out is on the way out, you'll notice all of these casks and a couple of machines over here. That's for our Johnny Cask casking machine. We are one of a couple of breweries, I think it's 3 breweries in the United States that actually still cask conditioned ales. And we offer it every Thursday night when we send fresh casks down to the brew pub, and it's only there and it goes until it runs out. During the summer season, it makes it like 8 hours, and during the off season, you should generally find it all week long. But it's a really cool beer that we do. Johnny Cask is a 75-minute IPA that uses this maple syrup from Sam's Family Farm. It's a cool one-of-a-kind beer you can only find at our brew pub. Any questions? Alright, we're going to head out this way. You're going to return your safety glasses, and then you're going to step up to the bar. You're going to trade 1 shark for 1 beer. Delaware state law allows us to offer you guys 12 ounces of beer, so we give you 4 3-ounce beers instead of 1 12-ounce beers. Give or take right around there. So guys, everyone have a good time on the tour?
Yeah.
Everybody excited for free beer?
Yeah.
Alright, let's try it again. Everyone excited for free beer?